They say we die 2 deaths, once when the body fails, and again when our name is spoken for the last time. But we have built machines to cheat that second death. We trap our smiles in glass and our voices in the ether, believing they will last forever. But even ghosts need energy to speak, and eventually, the screen goes black. Welcome to Dust and Echoes. My name is James Cawley, and every week I bring you a new original story, stories drawn from that strange place where memory, myth, and the things we try not to name all intersect. If you enjoy what you hear, sharing your favorite with a friend is what keeps this show going. Tonight's story takes us into the suffocating fog of the Grand Banks in 1755, where a Royal Navy officer encounters a pristine, white vessel that defies the laws of his time. This is a story about the fragility of memory, the terror of the inexplicable, and the desperate human need to leave something behind. And what happens when a man of the Enlightenment finds a window into the future and realizes he is powerless to keep it open. I call this story The Soul Trap. The fog off the Grand Banks did not roll, it breathed. It sat upon the water like wet wool, stifling the groan of the HMS Acheron's timbers and dampening the bell that told the half hour. Lieutenant Thomas Halloway stood at the gunwale, his knuckles white against the damp wood. He was a man of the Royal Navy, a man of charts, sextants, and the rational geometries of the Enlightenment. He believed in what could be measured, but the silence out here, 300 leagues from the nearest hearth, measured nothing but the depth of his own unease. "Larboard bow." The call from the crow's nest was not a shout, but a strangled gasp. Halloway squinted. Through the gray soup, a shape materialized. It was not the jagged, wrought-blackened silhouette of a derelict schooner. It was white. Unnaturally, blindingly white. It sat low in the water, its lines curved and smooth, devoid of the harsh angles of timber and nail. It looked like a polished bone thrown by a giant hand. "Bring us about," Halloway ordered, his voice steady, though his stomach tightened. "Prepare the launch." He checked his pocket watch. He touched the small folded paper inside his coat. A letter to his daughter, Elspeth, in Bristol, whom he had not seen in 3 years. "I am coming home," he had written. "The world is vast, but my love is fixed." He needed that anchor now. They rowed toward the white vessel. The water slapped against the hull, which was not wood. It was smooth, cold, and hard as stone, yet it floated. There were no barnacles, no weed. It was pristine, an affront to the chaotic rot of the ocean. "Steady," Halloway whispered to the men. They hooked the rail, a silver metal brighter than pewter but harder than iron, and Halloway pulled himself aboard. The deck was a textured white surface, harsh under his boots. There were no ropes, no canvas sails, only a single, metallic mast that tapered like a needle. And there was the body. A man lay slumped in the cockpit. He wore clothes of a fabric Halloway had never seen, bright blue, impossibly soft, pulling tight across a paunchy stomach. On his chest were strange, rubbery shoes. He looked peaceful, preserved, despite the rictus of surprise on his face. "Is he dead, sir?" asked Miller, the bosun. "Quite," Halloway said. He stepped closer. The man's skin was gray, but not bloated. Halloway's eyes were drawn to the man's hand. It gripped a small black rectangle. It was a slab of obsidian, perhaps, or black glass, smooth and seamless. It fit perfectly in the dead man's palm. Halloway reached down. His fingers brushed the dead man's cold thumb. He pried the object loose. It was heavier than it looked. Cold. Dense. Halloway turned it over. On the back, inlaid in the black stone, was a silver apple with a bite taken from it. A heraldry? A maker's mark of some unknown guild? "Sir," Miller hissed. "Look." Halloway turned the object over in his hand, As he tilted it upright, the black glass ceased to be glass. It ignited. A collective scream died in the throats of the boat crew. Halloway nearly dropped it. A light, purer and steadier than any lantern, bloomed from within the stone itself. It was not the flickering orange of fire. It was a cold, absolute light, trapped beneath the surface. And there was a face. Trapped within the glass, clearer than any painting by Dutch masters, was the image of two children. They were smiling, showing teeth, standing before a castle of impossible colors, pinks and electric blues that hurt the eyes. They looked out at Halloway, frozen in a moment of terrifying joy. Below the children, white runes glowed. 11:14, Tuesday, October 24th. It's a soul trap, Miller whispered, backing away, making the sign of the cross. He's caught them in the mirror. Halloway's heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. He was a man of science. He was a man of reason. But looking at the glowing faces of the children, illuminated by a light with no flame, he felt the fragile architecture of his world tremble. "Into the boat," Halloway commanded, his voice cracking. "Take the body. Take the artifact. We return to the Acheron." The captain's cabin on the Acheron smelled of stale tobacco and beeswax, usually a comfort to Halloway. Now it felt like a tomb. Captain Vance was dead of the fever 2 weeks prior. Halloway was in command. He sat at the desk, the artifact resting on the velvet map cloth. The crew spoke in hushed tones on the deck above. They called it the Ghost Star. They said the white boat was a chariot from hell. Halloway stared at the black slab. It had gone dark minutes after they boarded. It lay dormant, a brooding monolith. He reached out, his finger trembling. He tapped the glass. Nothing. He pressed a protrusion on the side, a tiny ridge in the metal. The light exploded outward again. Halloway flinched. The children returned. The impossible castle. 12:30. The runes had changed. "It keeps time," Halloway whispered. "Without gears. Without a spring." He noticed a small glyph at the bottom of the glass, a tiny white circle. He pressed his thumb against it, holding it down by accident. A beam of light, blinding and white, shot from the back of the device, scorching Halloway's vision. He knocked his chair back, falling to the floor, scrambling away from the searing eye of the god. "Sorcery!" he gasped. He lay on the floorboards, breathing hard. The beam cut through the gloom of the cabin, illuminating dust motes in a solid shaft of brilliance. It did not flicker. It did not smoke. A star held in a stone. Halloway crawled back toward the desk. He touched the glass again. The light extinguished instantly. He picked it up, handling it like a viper. He swiped his thumb across the bottom, mimicking a gesture he hadn't realized he'd seen the dead man's thumb resting in. The glass dissolved. The children vanished. Halloway gasped. A mosaic of glowing tiles appeared, vibrant and sharp, hovering in a grid. Emerald, azure, crimson. Each tile bore a tiny white hieroglyph, a green square with a white cloud, a blue square with a stylized compass, a flower of many colors. His thumb, acting on a bypass of his conscious mind, touched the green tile with the white cloud. The screen shifted instantly. A list of names appeared in black script against white paper that was not paper. Sarah, boss, mom. He touched the name Sarah. A script unfolded. Words appeared in gray and blue bladders, hovering like the speech of saints in a church fresco. Joel, I'm losing my mind out here. The silence is too much. Sarah, just relax, honey. Enjoy the boat. You earned this. Joel, the sky looks wrong. It's too dark. Sarah, stop drinking. Call me later. Joel, tell the kids I love you. Halloway read the script. It was English, but the dialect was strange, truncated. Honey, kids. The letters were perfectly formed, printed by no hand. He was alone, Halloway murmured. He was frightened. Halloway felt a sudden piercing kinship with the dead man Joel. He thought of his own letter to Elspeth. The world is vast. Joel had been lost in the vastness, reaching out through this ether glass to a woman named Sarah. He touched a word at the top left, a blue arrow pointing back. The mosaic returned. He found the tile that looked like a flower of impossibly bright petals. A gallery of miniatures assaulted him. Hundreds of tiny paintings, perfect in their realism. A plate of food, meat and greens, captured with such clarity he could see the glisten of grease. A beast, small and ugly, wearing a red coat like a jester. The children again, screaming in laughter, blurring with motion. A woman, Sarah, pulling a face, her tongue out. These were not the portraits of aristocracy. They were the captured moments of a life, trivial, messy, intimate. Why? Halloway asked the silence. Why preserve the meal? Why paint the beast? It seemed a desperate attempt to prove existence. I was here. I ate this. I saw this. Then he saw a tile marked with a black triangle, a navigator's wedge. Halloway touched it. The painting moved. Sound, tinny and sharp, erupted from the stone itself. The man, Joel, looked out from the glass. He looked directly at Halloway. He blinked. He breathed.
If someone finds this, please tell my wife Sarah and our kids that I love them so much. I'm so sorry. All I want is to come home. But something is wrong with the ocean. It's dark on the edges. Oh, God.
Halloway dropped the device. It clattered on the desk. He speaks, Halloway whispered, pressing his back against the wall. He is dead. But his ghost is in the stone. He looked at the top right corner of the glass. A tiny icon, like a vessel filling with liquid. It was red. Only a sliver of the red liquid remained. 10%. Halloway did not know the mathematics of the percentage, but he understood the color red. He understood the dwindling level in the vessel. The life of the spirit was fading. They made landfall at New Providence 3 days later. The island was a jagged tooth of rock in the Atlantic, governed by Lord Governor Corvus. Corvus was a man who had left England not for its lack of religion, but for its lack of severity. He ruled New Providence as a theocracy of one. The Acheron limped into the harbor. The fog had followed them, clinging to the masts like a shroud. Halloway stood on the quarterdeck, the artifact wrapped in silk, tucked into his breast pocket. It felt hot against his ribs. He had spent the last 3 days staring into the glass. He knew Joel's life. He knew Joel's wife had a mole on her left cheek. He knew Joel hated his labor. Monday blues again. A script read. He knew Joel worshipped the children, but the vessel was emptier now. 5%. The device had warned him. Low power mode, it had said, turning the vessel yellow. Halloway had wept. He felt he was watching a friend die a second death. Lieutenant, the harbor master called from the dock. The governor awaits. He has heard rumors. News traveled on the wind in New Providence. The sailors had talked. The ghost star. The trapped souls. Halloway was marched up the cobblestone path to the governor's mansion, a brooding structure of dark stone that overlooked the sea. The air smelled of sulfur and burning pine. Corvus sat in a high-backed chair of carved oak. He was a skeletal man, his skin like parchment, his eyes burning with the fervor of a man who sees demons in the soup broth. "Show me," Corvus commanded. His voice was like grinding stones. Halloway hesitated. "My lord, it is delicate. It is fading. Show me the oracle." Halloway stepped forward. He unwrapped the silk. The black mirror lay inert in his hand. Halloway tapped the screen. The children appeared. Corvus recoiled, clutching the arms of his chair. "Sorcery! They are trapped in the ether!" "No, my lord," Halloway said, a desperate need to defend Joel rising in him. "They are memories, echoes." Silence. Corvus stood, his shadow stretching long against the wall. "It is a window into the inferno, Look at their attire, the colors of the harlot, the structure behind them. It is the Tower of Babel. Corvus snatched the stone from Halloway. His long, dry fingers smeared the glass. How does one commune with the demon? Corvus demanded. It is not a demon, Halloway pleaded. His name is Joel. He was a father. Corvus ignored him. He poked at the glass violently. He touched a tile marked with the number 24. October, Corvus read. The year, 2024. The end times. He looked up, his eyes wide with terrifying ecstasy. This is a prophecy. We are but dust. The future is written. He tapped wildly. He touched a tile that looked like a sheet of parchment. Grocery list. Milk, eggs, Advil, rat poison for the shed. Rat poison, Corvus whispered, trembling. The pestilence. He speaks of the pestilence to come. We must purify ourselves. It is a list of provisions, Halloway shouted, stepping forward. 2 guards seized his arms. It is mundane. It is just a man's life. It is the scripture of the damned, Corvus screamed. And see, the lifeblood drains. He pointed to the corner. 2%. The oracle dies, Corvus announced to the room of gathered sycophants. Because we are unworthy. We have not sacrificed enough. Give it back, Halloway struggled. It needs rest. It needs to sleep. It needs blood. Corvus drew a dagger from his belt. We must feed the spirit. No, Halloway thrashed. Corvus held the device high. The screen remained lit, casting an eerie glow on the governor's maniacal face. 1%. Speak to us, spirit, Corvus bellowed at the stone. Give us a final command. Corvus's thumb mashed the screen. He touched the glyph of a silver camera lens. The screen shifted. It showed the room. It showed the flickering candles. It showed Corvus's own twisted face illuminated in perfect clarity, every pore, every madness visible. Corvus screamed, It steals my soul! It is a mirror of judgment! He raised the dagger to strike the glass, to kill the demon that wore his face. Don't, Halloway cried. But before the blade could fall, the device buzzed. A short, dying vibration, like a mechanical beetle, rattled against Corvus's hand. The screen went black. A spinning wheel, white and jagged, appeared for a fleeting second in the center of the void. And then, nothing. The light died. The room plunged back into the yellow gloom of candlelight. Corvus stood frozen, the dagger raised. The artifact was just a black stone again. Silent. Cold. It has judged us, Corvus whispered, his voice trembling with terror. It found us wanting. The light has gone forever. He dropped the stone. It hit the floor with a dull thud. It did not shatter. It lay there, indifferent. The guards released Halloway. He fell to his knees. He crawled to the device. He picked it up. He pressed the side ridge. A red vessel appeared on the black screen, empty save for a sliver of red lightning. It blinked once. A demand for energy that did not exist in this century. A plea. Then, the screen faded to total blackness. Halloway stared into the reflection. He saw his own face. He saw a man who had traveled across the ocean to find a miracle, only to watch it die of exhaustion. Is it gone? Corvus asked, shrinking back into his chair. Halloway ran his thumb over the cold glass. He thought of Joel. He thought of the script. Tell the kids I love them. That message was locked in this tomb forever now. The spirit had settled. The memory was buried in the black obsidian. Yes, Halloway said softly. He stood up, sliding the dead stone into his pocket. It felt heavy now. Just a useless rock. The spirit has departed. What did it want? Corvus asked, wiping sweat from his brow. What was the final prophecy? Halloway looked at the governor. He saw a small, frightened man terrified of a list of milk and poison. It wanted to go home. Halloway lied. It just wanted to go home. Halloway turned and walked out of the hall. He did not ask for permission. He walked out into the fog. his hand clutching the dead black mirror. He walked to the edge of the cliffs. The ocean crashed below, vast and indifferent. He pulled the letter to Elspeth from his pocket. The paper was crinkled, the ink slightly run. "My dearest Elspeth," it began. He looked at the stone in his other hand. A library of Alexandria, a gallery of 1,000 moments, a voice from the future, all extinguished because he could not feed it. He realized then that the horror was not the light. The horror was how easily the light went out. The horror was that Joel was just as fragile as a sailor on a wooden tub in 1755. All that power, all that knowledge, and it died just the same. Halloway reared his arm back. He thought to throw the thing into the sea, to let it sink to the crush of the deep. But he stopped. He couldn't do it. It was a tomb, and one did not desecrate a tomb. He slid the stone back into his coat, next to his heart. He would keep it. He would keep it as a reminder. He looked out at the horizon where the gray sky met the gray water. "Goodbye, Joel," he whispered. The fog swallowed the sound, leaving only the roar of the sea and the silence of a world that was suddenly, terrifyingly, too quiet. That was The Soul Trap, written and performed by the author, me, James Cawley. It is strange to think that the objects we carry in our pockets, these mundane little slabs of glass and lithium, would appear as divine miracles to the people who came before us. But perhaps Halloway was right to be afraid. We pour our memories, our loves, and our final words into these devices, trusting them to keep us alive. But digital immortality is fragile. It doesn't rot like flesh. It simply blinks out when the circuit breaks. It forces us to ask, when the screen goes dark, do we disappear with it? My name is James Cawley, and you're listening to Dust and Echoes. If you like stories like this, stories that drift between historical grit and modern anxiety, tales of impossible artifacts, and the quiet, crushing weight of time, then you're in the right place. I'm glad we found you. Do me a favor, it will only take 1 minute of your time, and it will help this show gain traction. Leave a rating and comment. Tell me which episode has been your favorite and what you'd like to hear more of in future episodes. I release a new original story in cinematic audiobook format every single week, and I think you'll love the next story. Until then, remember this. We build our lives upon devices made of light and glass, but we easily forget, when the lights go out, that a mirror is pointless in the dark.